All right, folks, good morning. So I'm not here. Well, I am this morning, but just because I'm making this video. Anyway, let's talk about multi-step absolute value. This is absolute value part 3. Okay. Ooh. This is the final episode of absolute value, okay? And the main idea of today is we're going to figure out how to solve absolute value problems or absolute value equations that look like this, where we've got something outside of the absolute value bars, but on the same side of the equation, okay? So before we get into that, we're solving these exactly the same way as we're solving these, okay? When we've got a problem like this, what are we trying to do with the variable? Well, we're trying to isolate it, right? We can isolate this by, do these two on your own. Pause the video real quick. I hope you paused it because I'm going to solve them now. Okay, so for example, you would subtract 2 from both sides, right? I would give you 5x is equal to 25. And then we could divide by 5 on both sides, and that will give us that x is equal to 5. Okay? We've isolated the variable. We're getting it alone. Okay? Same on this one. We want to isolate the variable. Add 4 to both sides. We end up with 3x equals 9. Okay, we next want to divide by 3 because it's being multiplied by x. We're using those inverse operations. And we'll get that x is equal to 3. We know that because the variable is now isolated. Okay, this idea of isolating the variable will come up a lot today. Okay, a whole lot. All right, so circle that answer because I like to do that, or square it. When we have absolute value bars, okay, the equations that we were working on, they were already isolated, right? I mean, if we take a look back at lesson 4, right, these absolute values, look, there's nothing on the same side, right? It is alone, it is isolated, and that's what we want, okay? So our first step is, in fact, to isolate the absolute value bars. Okay? Make sure y'all are writing these down because we are going to turn in these papers tomorrow when I'm back. Okay? So first step is to isolate the absolute value bars. Okay? Now, how would we get the absolute value alone here? What do we need to get rid of? Well, we need to get rid of this plus 6. How do we get rid of a plus 6? Well, think about it. Okay, if this equation was x plus 6 equals 7, what would you do to isolate the x? Well, you would subtract 6 from both sides. It's exactly what we're going to do here. We subtract 6. So we then get that the absolute value of n plus 5 is equal to 1. Fantastic, okay? This is a positive number, so that's true. Absolute value is always positive, and we're good to go on to the next step. Okay, this is the main part of this. This is the only difference between what we're doing this week and what we've done last week. Is now we just have that extra step of isolating the absolute value. So now we can split it into 2 equations. Right? So we split it into n plus 5 equals 1 and n plus 5 equals -1. All right? Yeah. And then we just solve both equations. All right? So here we would subtract 5 from both sides. We get n equals -4. Fair enough. We subtract 5 from both sides on this equation because we're doing the same thing on both sides. And we get that n equals -6. Ta-da! And then step 4, obviously, is to celebrate. I would be celebrating more if I wasn't under the weather. Okay? All right. So what I want y'all to do is after getting these notes, I want you to complete the practice problems in class. These practice problems. After you complete these, I want you to do the homework problems. You can find the homework problems on the Week at a Glance next to Monday. There will be a link. You can click on those. The assignment is called Multi-Step Absolute Value Practice Problems. I'm pretty darn sure. Let me check real quick. They are called, multi-step absolute value equation practice problems. Okay, it's kind of a mouthful, but that's the situation. Now on these, I want you to try them on your own. Okay, go through and just figure out how to isolate the variable isolate the absolute value bars first. Okay, so pause this video. I'll go through how to do it, just that first step, and then y'all will do the rest. Okay. So pause the video and try the first step on your own. Okay, let's see how you did. All right, this first one, number 1, I would be subtracting 3 from both sides. Get the absolute value of x plus 2 is equal to 16. Okay, the second one, what do you think I did? You're right. Subtract 5. I hope you're right. Okay, and you get the absolute value of 2x equals 20. All right. This one here, remember, this is multiplication. All right. If you ever have trouble with these, just put your own variable in for the absolute value. For example, think of it, instead of 4 times the absolute value of x plus 2, try like 4x equals 24. How would you isolate the variable there? Well, you divide by 4. It's exactly what you're going to do here. Divide both sides by 4. You get the absolute value of x minus 2, because these cancel out, is equal to 6. Ta-da! Here, what would we do here? Well, if this was x minus 2 equals 8, how would you isolate the variable? You'd add 2. That's how we're going to isolate the absolute value. Add 2, add 2. You'll get the absolute value of 4x plus 2, because these cancel out, is equal to 10. All right? I want to go over number 5 right now, actually. This one is technically a 2-step thing. Okay? If we had 6 minus x equals negative 9, well, we'd subtract 6 from both sides, right? We'd be left with negative x equals negative 15. Right, which we could divide by negative 1, because that is technically a negative 1, right? And we'll get that x equals 15. Okay, technically 2 steps. That does happen, and you will see that, okay, in those practice problems. So here, we'll do the same exact thing to this one. Subtract 6 from both sides. You get negative the absolute value of negative 9, plus x equals negative 15. And a lot of people here kind of stop and they're like, wait, this is equal to a negative. Okay, that's fine. All right, we cannot say that there's no solution until we have isolated the absolute value bars. If the absolute value bars are isolated and they're equal to a negative number, then yeah, we know there's no solution. But these aren't isolated yet. So we can't say there's no solution just yet. We've got to isolate them. Okay, this last step here, to get rid of that negative 1, we've got to divide by negative 1 on both sides. We get the absolute value of negative 9 plus x is equal to positive 15. Okay, so you see how after we isolated the absolute value, it ended up being something we can make sense of. I'm sorry if that, I think you can see that mouse. All right, cool. So then you would go on to splitting it, right, and continue solving it. Let's look at this one, okay? Now, if you said subtract 7 from both sides first, great work, okay? The absolute value of n plus or n minus 2 should be equal to 8. Then you would split it into 2 equations. N minus 2 equals 8, and n minus 2 equals negative 8. Whoops, there we go. Add 2 to all the sides, you'll get n is equal to 10, and n is equal to negative 6. I just solved that one the whole way because why not? It's fun. All right, so I do want y'all solving these the entire way. Okay, I just wanted to go over the first step because that is the hardest part for a lot of people, even though it's the exact same thing as isolating a variable. The exact same thing. Okay, something you got to remember. The exact same thing, okay, as isolating a variable. The only difference is you've got a whole absolute value to isolate now. Same little steps, so, okay. All right, so folks, go ahead and get through that, and when you're finished with that, head to Canvas, complete the multi-step absolute value equation practice problems. And once you're done with that, you can complete any missing assignments they have in this class or other classes. I'm going to go check them, Nasser and Ashton, right now. Just make sure, and Timothy, that if you have any missing assignments in any other classes, you're using this time wisely to get those done. Okay? I will be checking them with the sub. If you're not working, you're going to get in trouble and get your name written down, all right? But if you are working, then congratulations to you. Keep it up. Great work. All right. I will see you all Tuesday. I will be back there for sure. All right. See y'all then, Mr. Whale.